In the vast timeline of human civilization, few empires inspire as much awe and horror as the Assyrians. At their height, they controlled the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. Yet today, the name of Assyria evokes little in the public mind. Why? Because the Assyrians weren't just powerful, they were feared. Their brutality was so terrifying, so complete, that even their enemies sought to erase them from history. This is not just a story of conquest, it's a story of systematic domination, mass terror, and the rise and fall of a civilization drenched in blood. The rise of Assyria. The origins of Assyria trace back over 4,000 years to the city of Ashur on the banks of the Tigris River. By 900 BCE, Assyria began its transformation into a military powerhouse. Under rulers like Ashur-Nasir-Pal II and Tiglath-Pileser III, Assyria established the first true professional standing army in history. They innovated warfare with siege engines, cavalry divisions, and iron weapons. They didn't just conquer cities, they shattered civilizations. They flayed rebels alive, burned entire towns, and deported populations en masse to prevent uprisings. Fear was not a byproduct of their empire, it was a calculated tool. Terror as state policy. Assyrian kings left behind thousands of inscriptions boasting about their cruelty. Ashur-Nasir-Pal II once recorded, "I cut off the heads of their fighters and built a tower before their city. I burned their adolescent boys and girls." This wasn't propaganda meant to impress historians. It was psychological warfare. The Assyrians wanted their enemies to know what awaited them if they resisted. They used mass deportation as a way to dilute cultural identity and ensure submission. Entire communities were uprooted and relocated to the Assyrian heartland or scattered across the empire. Their goal wasn't assimilation, it was domination. Modern scholars have debated whether to classify the Assyrians' policies as genocide. What's certain is that their reign left a trail of obliterated cultures and devastated peoples. Engineering and administration. But the Assyrians weren't just brutal, they were brilliant administrators. They developed roads and communication systems, libraries, taxation protocols, and advanced irrigation networks. The city of Nineveh, under King Ashurbanipal, housed one of the world's earliest known libraries, containing over 30,000 clay tablets. This paradox, sophisticated governance combined with horrifying violence, is what made the Assyrian Empire so unique. They governed as efficiently as they killed, and in doing so, they set the blueprint for future empires, from Persia to Rome. Even their art was designed to showcase their power. Grand reliefs depicting kings slaying lions or defeating vast armies were not mere decoration. They were visual warnings. Enemies at the gates. But an empire built on fear cannot last forever. By the late 7th century BCE, a coalition of oppressed peoples, the Medes, Babylonians, and Scythians, rose against Assyria. In 612 BCE, they sacked Nineveh. The destruction was so complete, so thorough, that Assyria seemed to vanish overnight. For centuries, the world forgot the Assyrians. Even the Bible mentions them only as villains, proof of their feared legacy. It wasn't until the 19th century that archaeologists digging in modern-day Iraq uncovered the ruins of their cities, their palaces, and their brutal records. What they found changed history and revealed the terrifying truth of Assyria's forgotten empire. Legacy of blood. The Assyrians were more than just warriors, they were the architects of empire. Their methods of control, suppression, and psychological warfare would echo through the centuries. From Rome's crucifixions to Stalin's deportations, the legacy of Assyrian brutality lives on, not as a relic of barbarism, but as a foundational tactic of empire. And yet, their cultural achievements, mathematics, medicine, astronomy, are often overshadowed by the rivers of blood they spilled. It is this duality, enlightenment and terror, that makes their story both fascinating and terrifying. Why were they forgotten? Perhaps their enemies wanted to erase them from history out of vengeance, or perhaps later civilizations were too disturbed by what they represented. Unlike Rome, which romanticized its violence, the Assyrians made no effort to hide it. They celebrated their cruelty openly. In a world desperate for heroes and builders, the Assyrians remind us of the cost of power, raw, unchecked, and unapologetic. Their disappearance from mainstream memory may be the world's subconscious rejection of empire at its most terrifying form. Conclusion. Lessons from the ashes. The Assyrians rose in fire and fell in fire, but their story is not just one of ancient brutality. It's a mirror held up to the empires that followed. They teach us that power without empathy leads to ruin, that fear can build empires, but it cannot sustain them, and that even the most terrifying regimes can vanish overnight, only to be remembered centuries later in the ruins they left behind. To understand the Assyrians is to confront the darkest capabilities of human civilization, but it is also to better understand how power operates and how it must be held accountable. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Before Time New for more forgotten histories and untold truths.